All right, here we go. Welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Julie Hilton. I'm the Vice President of Marketing Communications at MedicAlert, and we are delighted that you've joined us today for our latest Healthy Hour. Today we're talking about fall prevention and aging gracefully. Presenting today in partnership with our friends from Lifeline, and let's get started. So here's what we're going to cover today. I'll talk a little bit about MedicAlert. I'll introduce our speaker. We'll have Portia tell us a little bit about Lifeline, and then we'll get directly into the Q&A. We'll cover as many of your questions as we can. And in these different categories, general information, preventing falls, tips for caregivers, and then some resources for you. And then we'll talk more at the end about some resources that are available both through Philips and through MedicAlert. Right. So today, a little about MedicAlert. Many of you may know about us, but just to give you a little, let me just double check. I got a note that maybe you couldn't hear me. Can you hear me okay, Portia? Okay, great. All right. I'll start again then. About MedicAlert. One thing that's really exciting is that this year is our 65th anniversary. MedicAlert's been around since 1956. How MedicAlert was started was there was a girl who cut herself while her parents were out of town playing with her cousins. She was taken to the emergency room where, as a normal treatment, she was given a Texas antitoxin, which unfortunately she was allergic to. So she suffered an anaphylactic reaction and went into a coma, almost died. Now, her father was a physician, Dr. Marion Collins, and upon returning home and finding his daughter in this condition, was very distressed to think, I knew she had this allergy, but I wasn't there to protect her. How can I let people know in the future if something happens and I'm not there, that she has this condition and this allergy that's potentially life-threatening? So he and his wife created little paper bracelets for her to wear. They pinned notes to her dress when she was going to school, but when she was going away to college, they wanted a more permanent way to communicate her condition. So they worked with a jeweler in San Francisco, and they created something that looks an awful lot like this. This was the original MedicAlert ID created in 1956 for Linda Collins. And very quickly, other people took notice of it and thought, I need something like that. I have type 1 diabetes, or I have asthma, or I have some other condition that really is going to impact how I'm treated in an emergency. And to his credit, Dr. Collins very quickly saw that this was an idea that was more about more than just protecting his daughter. And they started making MedicAlert bracelets and IDs available to other people. What really sets us apart is that there are a lot of people that provide medical IDs, but at MedicAlert, we pair that with an emergency health profile. This is something that Dr. Collins and his team did in the very beginning. It started out as paper ledgers of different health information, but has advanced obviously now to be a digital health profile that we maintain. So really it goes beyond what's just engraved on the ID, and we can provide so much more rich information in a medical situation. We also have a 24/7 emergency support service. So if someone wearing a MedicAlert ID is in an accident or has some other medical emergency, our team is there around the clock to make sure that their medical information is conveyed, all the specific details, as well as to contact emergency contacts. And the other thing that sets MedicAlert apart is we are and have been since our founding a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So our mission today, same as it was 65 years ago, is to save and protect lives by sharing vital information in our members' moments of need. So how does it work? It all starts with that online health record that's paired again with your custom MedicAlert ID. That's engraved with your most critical information. Your online health record includes everything from the medications you're taking to past surgeries, vaccinations, medical devices, anything that someone would need to know in an emergency situation. When someone sees your ID, that's the trigger to contact our 24/7 emergency support team. And what that helps do is ensure that you get fast and accurate treatment in an emergency. When a first responder or emergency personnel understands what your health concerns are, they're able to provide you much better treatment up front. So that's a little about MedicAlert, and we are going to move on now to talk about our speaker today. We are delighted to have back with us again, Portia Singh. Portia is the Senior Product Manager and Senior Project Manager for Digital Consumer and AI at Lifeline. And she has done tremendous amounts of research in aging and movement and many other things. So I'm going to ask Portia you to tell us a little bit more about your background, and then I'll have you do an introduction to Lifeline. So welcome. We're very glad to have you.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. I'm glad to be back. So like Julie said, my name is Portia Singh. I'm currently at Lifeline as a Senior Product Manager. And I look over our AI products as well as our Lifeline Cares product that goes with our personal emergency alert system. My background is in computer science and biomedical engineering. And throughout my PhD and since, I've been really focusing on bringing technology solutions into the hands of the aging population, as well as their informal caregivers. So really focusing a lot on supports for family who are supporting older individuals to safely age in place. And so Lifeline is, yes. So Lifeline is a world-class provider of aging and caregiving solutions and services. So personal emergency response services as well as others. And our mission is really, we're passionately committed to helping seniors live safely, more independent lives, easing the stress and worry for family members and other caregivers. And so we will be providing you with a lot of information that we've collected over the years that pertains to how you can help keep yourself or a loved one safe as it relates to falls risk. So Lifeline was founded in 1974 by a gerontologist and his wife. And since then, we've been providing world-class service with our 24/7 response center and innovative technology. So that's Lifeline.
And you've been around almost as long as MedicAlert. That's very cool. All right. So as Portia said, today we're really going to be talking about preventing falls, what the issues are around falls, how you can make yourself, your home safer, and how you provide better care to people who may be at risk of falling. So without further ado, I am going to take us directly into our first question, which I think some people might be surprised by the answers to. How common are falls and why should I be concerned?
Yes, so let's start off strong. So unfortunately, falls are very common in the population 65 years of age and older. In fact, 1 in 4 adults in that age range will fall, and falling once, unfortunately, increases your risk for falling in the future. Many people do not tell their doctor that they've fallen. About half of the people actually report this to their medical professional. And, you know, falling is can be a very scary occurrence. And so some actually don't tell anyone, not even a close loved one. But we really want to encourage, if you fall or if you witness a loved one fall or you know of a loved one falling, to really take it seriously. So kind of why you should be concerned. Well, falls can cause injury. Not every fall will, but many falls do cause severe injury to the individual, especially when they are of advanced age. So about 1 in 5 of those people who fall will have a serious injury as a result of that fall. And that gives us about, you know, according to the CDC, about 3 million older adults that are treated in the emergency departments across the country because of an injury sustained during a fall. Falls can be costly, both in price, medical bill, and subsequent treatments that may need to happen because of that fall. But it also can be costly to your quality of life, potentially decreasing your longer term mobility and requiring different changes that you may or may not want to make in order to create a safer environment for yourself. So falls are very serious. They are unfortunately common, but there are some things you can do to reduce your risk, also assess if you have a heightened risk for falling, and then preventative measures that you can take to kind of lower any risk that you have for falling.
Yeah, my sister is a nurse practitioner and she focuses in cardiac and geriatric care. And she said that, you know, a lot of the patients that she sees that have had falls, often that will precipitate other medical conditions,
Yes.
complications. Then, so the fall itself maybe wasn't that bad, but some of the repercussions of that can cause a decline in overall health. So she's like, I tell all my patients, stay on your feet.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into this, but also falling could help uncover a underlying reason. So the reason why a person falls is also important and can tell some information about their current health state. And I think we'll get into a question about that in a few.
Yeah, one more statistic I saw on this that was kind of crazy was that I guess almost 90% of hip replacements are precipitated by falls.
Yes.
Crazy.
Hip fractures, and at least 300,000 adults in the 65 plus range will get a hip replacement yearly. So when I say the cost kind of comes up, you know, if your fall results in something like a hip fracture, that could be very debilitating for, you know, the duration of the surgery and the recovery. And so yes, we want to stay on our feet as much as possible.
Okay. All right. So now that we know some of the dangers around falling and what the outcomes can be, what causes it? What are the typical things that contribute to falls?
Yes, so there are so many factors that can contribute to falls. Some kind of more obvious ones that you may think of are environmental hazards or home hazards. So having stairs in your home, the weather can contribute to falling, uneven steps, uneven sidewalks if you're walking around your neighborhood, doing risky activities or dangerous activities. And you know, it's interesting to tell someone, oh, that's a risky activity when it doesn't feel like it. But if you have underlying balancing issues, something as simple as reaching overhead and really stretching yourself to get a can at the top of your pantry may increase your risk for falling. poor footwear, lower body weaknesses. I think we have also some common conditions that could also contribute to falls. So I think on the next slide, we have some of those top ones.
Okay, there we go.
So yes, so these are 7 of the chronic health conditions that increase the risk of falls dramatically. So you'll see a lot of people with arthritis, obesity, functional limitations. So functional limitations would be some impairment in mobility. So if you are using a mobile aid in order to get around, you also have to be cognizant of how you're using that mobile aid as well. Right. Fear of falling. So just being nervous to do something or to walk in your environment could change the way that your gait that your gait is. So being fearful may cause you to maybe walk a little slower gait or even shuffle your feet to the point where you're at an increased risk of tripping. Multiple medications. Some medications may cause dizziness, or some of the side effects may increase your risk of falling. So really speak to your doctor or pharmacist anytime you get a new medication to see if there are risk factors that will, or certain symptoms that could increase your risk of falling. And when you feel those symptoms, really make sure to let them know so that they can make adjustments. I don't know how many times I've heard that, you know, someone's medication changed and it didn't quite sit well, and then they fell, which leads me to the 6th point, which is hypertension. So high blood pressure is something that is very frequently prescribed medication for, and also can cause dizziness in and of itself. And so if you have high blood pressure, you want to really pay attention to any indicators or feelings that you're more unbalanced or falling. And then lastly, diabetes. And so peripheral neuropathy, retinopathy, and neuropathy work independently and together to increase your falls risk. And so just again, if you have any of these conditions and you feel like you've been experiencing symptoms that have gotten you a little bit unbalanced, speak to your doctor. Sometimes medication changes can help reduce that risk, and sometimes they can have a discussion on if you need a supportive aid or some other modifications in order to reduce your risk of falling.
Right. You know, 2 things that I didn't see listed here, but I think could contribute to falls as well, are if you have any kind of impairment in sight or hearing. I know my grandmother fell, and it turns out her cataracts had gotten really bad, and it was the kind of thing that they just kept getting worse over time. So she didn't notice a big impairment, but she didn't see something and fell over it and broke her hip, had her hip replaced. So, I think that hearing or sight impairment, not being able to completely be in touch with your environment around you, could be another risk factor.
Yeah. And then also something that we don't think about, because they provide so much comfort and socialization, is pets, unfortunately. Yes. So when we're talking about your environment, be mindful of if a pet is running and excited around your feet, and you have a fear of falling, that could be a recipe for an increased risk. So, looking at the temperament of your pets and taking an honest look to see if your beloved pet could be also increasing your risk of falling. Right. But really and truly, you want to look at all your risks together and try to mitigate as many as possible. And you can do so with the help of a caregiver. You could do so with the help of a doctor. So yeah, there's certain things where you don't think about it, but it takes that one time the dog is too excited and they're heavy and you're off balance that could cause a fall.
I love somebody just commented in the chat, said sometimes if the grandchildren are around and they leave their toys everywhere in places that you're not used to.
Yes, Legos have probably caused many of falls from parents and grandparents alike. So
True, true, true. All right, we'll move on to the next. So someone I know fell recently. Is that a sign of aging in and of itself?
well, it could be. I mean, technically, we're all aging
Right,
right now, this moment.
right.
And so I think the previous questions revealed that there's so many factors that can impact whether or not a person falls. And so the fall in and of itself may trigger the evaluation of if some aging processes are kind of contributing to or something to look into. So yes, the person that you know may have fallen, but I would say what were they experiencing? Were they experiencing increased dizziness? Did they recently have a diagnosis or something that gave them a new medication that they weren't on before? Is it a matter of clutter? You'll see that assessment of risk has a lot to do with how you balance your strength and also how you're walking in space. And so really and truly, anyone of any age can have an increased risk of falling. Of course, we're focusing right now on older adults, but shuffling your feet is a risk for falling no matter what age you are. And so I would say that it is one of the signs of aging, an increased number of falls. An individual fall in and of itself could be a mistake, a simple, trip.
Sure.
But if you see that frequency going up, then you definitely want to see a doctor.
Okay. Is there a test or assessment to find out if I am likely to fall or what my risk profile is?
Yes, there are. And I'll preface this by saying that you want to speak to your physician, typically a primary care physician, because the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and the American Geriatric Association, both of those organizations recommend after the age of 65 or 65 plus an annual screening for falls risk. And so this is something that can be conducted by your primary care physician. And what they do is they screen you based on different parameters. Some may ask you questions during your annual visit that would basically be a screening without explicitly saying, I'm now screening you for falls risk. Right. But if they do have some indication or you even provide, hey, I fell a couple of times, I'm a bit nervous, can you assess me? Then they can order a bigger assessment. And so there are pretty standard, widely accepted tools that are used that do a very good job of assessing a person's falls risk. So you might hear the timed up and go test is one of them. But these tests and assessments are measuring your balance, your gait, and your strength. And so with that assessment, the doctor would be able to provide interventions to you. Maybe you need to add some exercise, some strength training to your daily. Maybe you need to adjust things, or they can give you specifics about how to improve your balance. So this is all can be done as part of your annual visit. So if you are not being, if you don't hear this from your doctor, go ahead and ask them because it is something that's pretty standard to do after a certain age during an annual visit.
Yeah, one of the questions in the chat was, what age is that that assessment should start?
Yeah, so like I said, the CDC and American Geriatric Association, of course, are looking at 65 and plus to definitely start it. But I would say if you're younger than that, sometimes people have chronic illnesses like diabetes, hypertension that increase their falls risk, but they don't have the age factor.
Right.
If at any time you feel that your balance is off and that you feel insecure walking, go ahead and mention it to your doctor during the primary care visit.
Great advice. All right, where do most falls occur?
So many falls occur in the home of the older adult, but of course they can happen in the environment, and then a smaller percentage happens in a medical facility. And so within the home, we spend a lot of time in like the living room. Many falls occur there, the kitchen, and the bathroom. So different rooms of the house have different inherent risks attached to them. But yes, a lot of people, individuals who are in fact community-based or living in their home, aging in place, do fall in the home. Falls can happen anywhere, so be mindful of your surroundings. But yes, they do happen in the home.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions to increase the risk of falling? Sorry.
To decrease.
Decrease, I'm sorry. We don't want to increase the risk. Sorry.
We definitely don't want to increase the risk.
Right.
So yes, there are a lot of things that we can do to decrease your risk of falling. I've already touched on some of them, and we'll get into more specifics in the coming questions. But one thing to note is if regardless if you are the older adult who is concerned about falling, or if you're the caregiver of someone that you're concerned about falling, the biggest advice I can give is have the conversation and take things like tripping excessively seriously. You'll want to assess the environment that that person is living, that you are living in, or your loved one is living in, and then assess kind of their current medical state and how that could contribute to falls. So there's a lot to do that you can do on your own, but always I encourage people to have the conversation also with their doctors. They should know that you are experiencing kind of doubt with your risk of falling. And if there's something, if you don't feel comfortable with that, maybe having a proxy or, a caregiver come with you in order to have that discussion. But sometimes we have a tendency to brush things off. And maybe this one fall will be fine. You'll get up and no harm, no foul. You don't have an injury, but that may not be the next fall. And so I just say, to decrease your risk of falling, be serious about understanding what that risk is so that you can actually decrease it.
And we are going to get into, in some later questions, a bit more detail around the very specific things you can do to decrease your risk in your environment, in your health and welfare. So stay tight. We're going to get there. First, we're going to talk about what should I do if I fall? You say, like, what is it? 1 in 4 people is going to fall a year. What do you do if you fall? And then how do you get up if you're if you're alone?
Yes, this is a great question. We can talk about falls prevention, but some of you may unfortunately fall. And so we have some guidance or some information in the resources about what to do if you do experience a fall. So the first thing you want to do is prepare. So you don't want to get up too quickly, because that can cause dizziness that will then potentially cause you to fall again. You want to really look around and assess, you've fallen, you are now aware of what happened. You may be on the floor, you may be in an awkward position, like on a stairwell. Assess the situation and environment around you. Are you safe where you are? Is there someone close by? For example, if you're in public space, can you ask someone for help? If you're alone, look at the look for a piece of furniture that's sturdy that you may be able to use to help brace yourself. Be aware of if you are feeling pain in any part of your body. You would want to avoid putting pressure on that particular part when you prepare yourself to try and attempt to raise yourself from the floor. And so then the second step is to raise. So you want to use your upper body if at all possible. Again, if you're injured in your upper body, you would have to come to a different strategy, but the key is to go slow. Make sure to get your head above your heart so that you can balance yourself and try to avoid any dizziness. And you want to slowly get up on your hands and knees and crawl to that sturdy piece of furniture.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to that sturdy piece of furniture, you want to get yourself into a seated position and then kind of just allow yourself the opportunity to breathe and recover and assess whether or not you can stand up safely. So these are kind of the steps that you would take if you were to fall, especially if you're alone. You'll want to get to after a few minutes, you want to get to a phone and call for help, or really just assess if something's broken, or if something feels weird. If you're bleeding, you would want to get attention on that. Between MedicAlert and Lifeline, we can have you covered. And so you may want to, as you're assessing the circumstances of that fall, later after you've gotten into a safe place, do consider whether or not you need an additional support tool like a MedicAlert if you're out in very mobile in the environment and the fall was outside, or like a Lifeline device that provides the in-home support with for falls to get you medical attention or help when needed. So, and if you have a family member who has recently fallen, and they have been able to get up and recover, and you're hearing about this, may try to have a deeper discussion about what the circumstances of that fall were. That's an opportunity to understand what corrective action could have been taken or could be taken. And it also can lead to the discussion on whether or not something has to change in their environment, or if you just need to add additional technology to support that person because they are alone frequently. Right.
Yeah. And I think MedicAlert and Lifeline work together very well to protect somebody in a fall. Having that push button system where you can summon help if needed. And also, can you talk a little bit about fall detection and how Lifeline handles that and what happens if a fall is detected?
Yes, I'll be happy to. So Lifeline, you wear a pendant, and in that pendant we have automatic fall detection, or you can always press the button. And so in our service, if you fall, the pendant detects that fall, and after a few seconds, it will call out to our 24/7 response center, where one of our trained professionals will reach out and ask if you need assistance. And you can determine whether or not you're able to get up yourself. And we can, certainly stay on and support you while you try and make that attempt. But if for some reason you aren't able to assist yourself in getting up, as part of the service, you would provide us with a contact list of who we can call that can come to you quickly to provide you with assistance. It could be a neighbor, it could be a daughter that lives close by, but the key is that they can come quickly to help provide assistance. And then if that's not available, we can facilitate the emergency transport or EMT to come and assist you in the home. And so that's really how our service works. It's a combination of technology and that nice touch of people who really care. Right. And so we try to get you the appropriate level of support you need depending on the severity and what type of fall it is.
Great. Thank you for taking us through that. I think a lot of people wonder, what actually happens. So you hope you don't find out, but it's good to know what the procedure and the process is.
Yeah, and I even in my personal family story, my grandfather had a Lifeline, and he had fallen once and thought that he would be able to get up himself. Managed to get up himself, which he was, I think, 90 at the time. But then realized that he had broken his collarbone and couldn't do much else but get himself up. And so he called my uncle. My uncle got there and was like, "Why didn't you tell the Lifeline people that you needed help?" They pressed the button and we facilitated sending right. The EMT. So we're definitely there. So if it comes time where you determine, oh wow, I actually don't have this, I can't do this, you just press the button at that point and you will get support.
Yeah. I think one thing I've heard some people being concerned about is like, oh, what happens if it goes off by accident and then they send somebody to break down my door? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard that concern, right?
Yeah, there's definitely checks. They'll try to make contact with you. If they can't make contact with you, then we will try to contact someone who can. And then, right. so there's a protocol. You don't have to worry about just immediately having the door broken down. But yeah. I've heard that a lot or as a concern.
So really it's up to the individual wearing the Lifeline to set, who's going to be contacted in case of an emergency. And my mother had Lifeline, so I'm a little familiar. And the first thing that happens is if when something is detected, they ask, "Are you okay?" Or
Are you okay?
Yeah. And she would be like, "Oops, I accidentally triggered it and I didn't mean to."
Yeah.
Be like, "Good, we just want to make sure you're all right." So
yeah,
just having that confidence of knowing that somebody was able to check in with them was a big deal for her. So
yeah, especially if you live alone.
Right, exactly. Oh, I'm sorry, I had already checked. So I have balance problems. This question. They're getting worse as I age. What are some of your suggestions for managing balance issues or working on stability?
Great question. Great question. So exercise is actually a great tool for increasing your balance and also increasing and improving your mobility. And this is something we should be doing at all ages. But if you find yourself, feeling like you're kind of declining on balance and gait and strength as you age, there are things that you can do to safely do exercise in the home. So we will provide you with these tools, but you can even do exercises from a seated position or standing position. And so between these two graphics, no matter where you are in your exercise or level of comfort with respect to your balance, you have a place to start, and then you can build up to standing. Now, I will say that you do want to discuss any rigorous or intense exercise program that you may want to start with your doctor, just to make sure that you're in the clear with respect to your medications and the type of conditions that you may be dealing with. But typically there is some form of exercise that is appropriate for everyone. It's just really assessing whether or not this particular program or that particular program is appropriate. So for this, I actually love these exercises. And if you are a caregiver and you are, at home at your desk, or, you can do these too. A lot of it is about stretching, because it's not just about strength and mobility, but also flexibility. Impacts how mobile you are. So you do want to kind of stay limber. Tightness in the muscles and ligaments can lead to increasing falls risk, because it minimizing your range of motion for movement. So the blue has things that you can do for seated position. The green exercises from a standing position. Once you go through this, you want to make sure that you have a supportive chair or sofa or something that you can support yourself. A counter, a kitchen counter, something very sturdy such that you can support yourself when needed for some of these exercises. And if, the exercises they could be challenging. They shouldn't cause pain. So if you're starting to feel pain, you want to stop and then either adjust your positioning, look at the instructions to make sure that you're doing it properly. And if that pain continues, you want to ask a doctor, because you may have some underlying condition like osteoarthritis or something that could be contributing. Like I said, even with osteoarthritis, there's exercises that are recommended in order to slow down that progression of disease. And so exercise is really a great tool for balance, stability, strength, and mobility.
No, those are great points. And I think two things I would add is that when we say exercise, sometimes I think just the word exercise tends to turn people off a little bit, because we don't necessarily mean that you're running on a treadmill, sweating buckets. It's more about moving your body and staying flexible and somewhat mobile. So exercise exercise sitting in a chair is just as valid as running on the treadmill. And
you really want to keep those that synovial fluid flowing in your joints. Keep your joints lubricated and that's not lose muscle mass as we age, because that is a concern.
And I experienced this with my mom. Sometimes after a fall, you're very afraid to exercise or do things that might put you in a vulnerable position or off balance in some way. And I know with her, she was able to, thank you Medicare, get some physical therapy sessions after her fall, and being able to have sort of that guided kind of working your way back into exercise with someone there to kind of help you and check and give you the confidence that you're doing right, I found was super helpful for her. And I would really encourage people, if they've had any kind of fall, that you talk to your doctor about getting physical therapy approved, because I do think that can be a great bridge to becoming more confident and strong on your own.
That's a great point, because as individuals and as caregivers of people as well, we do need to be able to advocate for what we need, and care providers, support organizations, they just don't know unless we ask. So I do want to encourage people to look at the types of resources available. And there are programs to help with a lot of things, and see if there's some that applies to your family situation.
Great. All right. What should I be aware of walking outside, especially when it's uneven?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You
I'm
live
not
in
sure where
Boston, the land of broken sidewalks.
I was going to say, I'm not sure where everybody's tuning in from, but I'm in Boston area, and I went to grad school in Pittsburgh, which is the land of slopes and stairs. So I think really when you are walking outside, you want to be mindful of how you are walking. So your actual gait. Are you lifting your feet up enough? Are you shuffling? Are you on Newberry Street with cobblestones? That's very specific to Boston. But what is this surface that you are walking on? Can you get on a safer surface? For example, especially in these historic areas of cities tend to have brick that may or may not be in the best shape. Can you avoid that route and still get to where you want to go? Weather, making sure that you're dressed appropriately for the weather that you may encounter, including your footwear, is something that can help help you avoid risk of fall in the environment. We're about to go into winter. So if you're in a place where it ices or snows, you may want to assess whether or not, is there a lot of black ice? At what point in the day do I expect the sidewalks should be cleared by? And maybe avoiding going out right after the snow when the cleanup is happening. So you can prepare for it, especially if you're outside in your own yard or in your own space, asking a caregiver to help you prepare that space to be safer for you to move about in. Look for railings. I think I saw someone in the chat saying, hold on to something, especially when you're approaching, stairs or a slope. And just it's hyper awareness, which is interesting because you don't want to put fear in yourself about falling, but you want to be aware that you could possibly fall. So it's a balance. I understand it's kind of hard to come to at some point, but your footwear, your appropriate footwear, knowing the weather, and just kind of being able to see, oh, well, that is pretty uneven. Let me slow down, or let me just make sure I'm picking my feet up. That'll be very helpful.
The other comment in the chat that I thought, okay, that makes so much sense, which is just slow down, right? So I feel like I personally get into problems when I get in a hurry and I don't leave myself enough time to get someplace, and then I do things that maybe aren't as smart, to get there. So yeah, just slowing down and taking your time can be just as important too. All right. What actions may cause falls to occur in the home?
Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit, but believe it or not, since we just got off of footwear, wearing inappropriate footwear for the home as well. So if you like to wear socks around the house, and you have, hardwood or flooring that tends to be slippery, it's not that you can't wear socks. You might want to get socks with grips. Having maybe slippers that don't quite fit you, not having a railing in the bathroom, and slipping in the shower, again, reaching overhead in the kitchen, creating dizziness and possibly leading to a fall. We do have a document that we will be able to provide to you all that steps through the common rooms in the home and shows you what types of clutter or what types of things to look for or hazards to look for in your own home and how to get rid of them. So I saw someone saying grips or mats in the bathtub and shower. Someone mentioned clutter. Clutter is a big big thing that you want to try to clear up. If you have an older adult visiting your home as well, I think it's also good to be mindful about your own space, even if you personally don't have an increased falls risk, making that safe space for your guests as well.
Right.
And so I think we have one example.
Yeah, we do. So we were looking at Lifeline provides a great room by room assessment of what the potential problems are and the potential fixes. So here's one example, which is the bathroom. You want to take us through it?
Yes, so this is the bathroom. It definitely needs improvement. So you can see here, number one, there's a little bit of water on this floor. Number two, these sockets are here, lack of a night light. So it makes it hard to see. If you're getting up in the middle of the night, you need to go to the bathroom. Takes time to get your eyes adjusted. This rug or this bath mat on number three is unsecured, slippery, just maybe not appropriate for the bathroom environment. And then number four, this step up. This step up on the shower can be dangerous, depending on what phase you are in your mobility. Having to lift your leg a certain height in order to get in and out of things like the tub, and oh gosh, tubs are bad sometimes. Sometimes I see, I was like, oh, please don't put your leg over that. Yeah. But so yeah, so then the next slide will show what the improvements are. All right, so as you can see, we installed this grip so that when you get into your toilet, you have some support as you sit down. We installed a night light so that you can see, because we touched upon vision being something that could increase your falls risk. We got us a nice mat that has a rubber backing, so to decrease slippage. And then within the actual shower, we added a shower seat so that you could stay sturdy or stay safe. You know, sometimes being in a seated position to shower is safer, which means we, change our shower head to be one of the ones that you can pull down, and then added additional assistive supports. Yeah, and so this is the bathroom. And when you look at the document, you'll see for bedroom, for kitchen, and this is our how to create a safer home document. So.
And I know that in the chat right now, Deanna from our team is sharing links to some of these documents, but everyone that registered for this, first of all, a couple things. One, this is being recorded, so this will be available for you to revisit and watch again if you want to get at any of the additional points that we're talking about. It will be up on our website starting tomorrow. And two, everyone that registered for the event will get an email follow-up that has links to these specific resources that we're talking about. And you'll be able to explore them in greater detail and not learn just about the bathroom, but about the other rooms of the house in this document as well. So we talked a little bit about shoes and slippers and footwear. If you were going to recommend one type, what would you say?
Yeah, so I would look for footwear that maybe is specific to walking. So if you're going to the store and looking for a walking shoe, because it tends to have the appropriate support in the proper places of your foot. Mm-hmm. If you're still active and you are running or jogging or doing a bit more of a speedier pace, you want to, ask, you can go to a running store and ask what the appropriate running shoe or fitness shoe would be for your foot and gait. Slippers are tough, right? Mm-hmm. But regardless of the shoe, you want to make sure it fits you properly. So having too small or too big of shoe definitely increases risk. And then where you can avoid shoestrings, so lace-free And or if you do have laces, just making sure that you secure them properly such
Right.
that you don't have the that tripping hazard based on that.
Great. All right. This is, I think, going to be our last question. So, but I think it's a really important one, right? So,
Yes.
when do you recognize that it becomes an issue that needs to be addressed, and how do you start that conversation?
Yeah, this is a great question, a great one to end on. So my first answer is that all falls should be considered, um, at least by yourself, the person falling, as to what were the circumstances, and be honest with yourself about what those circumstances were,
Mhm.
and how frequently this occurs. If you are a caregiver of a loved one who you suspect is falling more frequently, I think the best way to start that conversation is to be open and honest, and you know I want to support you the best I can in keeping you home, aging in place safely. I noticed that we've been talking about, falling, and you have this bruise. But try to have the conversation close to when the event occurred, because at that point, there is possibly a heightened awareness,
Mhm.
because the event just concluded, and the potential for problem solving, and also seeing the situation, um, the factors in the situation at the point in time that it happened,
Right.
because sometimes things change. Maybe it was just a simple mistake where I left something out and I tripped on it, or it could be something that readily occurs, for which we want to change the behavior or how we're doing things right there in the moment. So I would say, if you are concerned, approach the conversation with empathy and with care, because there was a question before that says, my that asked, about the friend who fell, is that a sign for aging? The aging process is not very kind all the time, and so there could be a lot of different things going on with that person, that the fall may be the least of their worries, unfortunately. And so really approach that conversation with empathy, and with open ears. Remember that if your goal is to help this person age in place as safely as possible, that you do need them to be a willing participant in that journey of aging in place. And so, don't turn away from the conversation, though. It's a conversation that must be had. If you need more motivation to have it, I will refer you to the statistics at the top of the
Right.
conversation, but
Right.
falls can be very serious. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Julie.
Yeah, and I would just add, we're going to talk in a second about some of the resources available both through MedicAlert and through Lifeline. And I noticed on Lifeline today that there was a really good blog post on what not to say when you're having this conversation. You don't start by, if you fall again, you're going to end up in the nursing home. That is like the
Yeah,
wrong
don't
thing
do
to
that.
say. So
Don't do that.
I mean, I know with my mom, just speaking from my own experience, it was really about preserving as much of her independence and agency as possible. So you fell, you broke your femur. We want to keep you living the way you want to live for as long as you can, but let's talk
Yeah.
about how we do that. So,
Yeah. And my grandfather was a very stubborn person that I never thought would agree to wear a lifeline. And even when considering a lifeline, we have this similar conversation that has to be had. And I came came to know that he had an event where he woke up in the middle of the night. He was very dizzy, and had some kind of shortness of breath, and it scared him. And so
Yeah.
when I was home the next time, which just so happened to be around the holiday, which this is the prime time. I know it sounds like a dampening to the holiday season, but some of us have not seen our loved ones in person much the last year, 2 years. This is a time to really, check in and see how they're doing,
Right.
possibly see them. But I was able to have the conversation and say, well, there's something that can help with that. I can get it for you, but you have to, do you feel comfortable wearing it? And if at all that person is like, no, 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 sometimes it's good to take a step back, fix what you possibly can fix, and then revisit the conversation at a different time.
Right.
Because though I say you should do it as soon of the event as possible, sometimes people need a little time to kind of process what just happened. And then it may be more appropriate to have the later conversation, but just make note to have that conversation.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. It's not always a one and done, right? Especially if
No.
somebody's used to living a certain way and making all their decisions and everything, like coming to the realization that they might need a different type of help can be just takes a little longer for them to get their head around it.
It does.
So,
Yeah.
all right, so we're going to talk a little bit now about about Lifeline specifically. You heard Portia talk a little bit earlier. Lifeline provides and has for almost 55 years, a type of push button system that has fall detection. We have partnered with with Lifeline. MedicAlert's partnered with Lifeline for a number of years now, and we do have a special offer for people that are MedicAlert members. You can get the first month of service, the shipping and activation for free, which is a definite saving. So if this is something that you're interested in, go to the website here, which is our partner page, or you can call this number, and they'll know that you came through MedicAlert and be able to provide that promotion. A little bit more about the resources that are available through Lifeline. I mentioned those blog posts. It's not one of the ones that was issued that's here, but like, how do I talk to somebody and what do I not say is also one I would recommend you look at, and we'll provide links to these as well. What can happen after a fall? What are issues regarding Alzheimer's and dementia and falls, and what you need to know about cognitive issues and falling. Some that we would recommend. And then we talked a little bit earlier about the exercises, the seated and standing, and I think these are great too. Portia, I don't know if you have anything to say about the yoga resources.
Yes, we have the yoga resources. I think we have a resource, and my marketing team might be mad at me to dig it up, but someone had mentioned Tai Chi in the chat.
Yeah.
And I do think we have resources on that, but yoga is just great all around, and you could do yoga from a chair. It is accessible. So yeah, I would say partnering between these two and the other two resources, you would have a solid basis for getting some strength and some flexibility exercises in.
And then can you talk a little bit about Philips Cares, which I know is part of the Philips Lifeline service, which really intended to be helpful for caregivers?
Yes, so Lifeline Cares is it's in addition to your Lifeline service, and it provides a digital platform where families can come together to support and care for the loved one who's a subscriber to Lifeline. So the subscriber is the person wearing the button, or our care recipient. And you can manage your Lifeline account from there. You can share notes about how your loved one is doing. So if you notice that they're tripping more, you can put it into the app and share that with the rest of the caregivers. And those caregivers could be whoever helps into the care of your loved one. It could be your sister, your brother, really a neighbor that's close by. And you can manage your availability to respond to a an emergency event if one does occur. So it's a great tool that comes with your Lifeline subscription. And the team has really thought about making a solution that really helps you coordinate things that need to be done and coordinate the care for your loved one. Also provide some education materials in there as well.
I know my family found this very useful because we weren't all living in the same city with my mom, but it was a way for, you know, the people that weren't necessarily close by to at least be looped in and cognizant of what the needs were. So very, very nicely done. All right. So that's one way of digital caregiving. One other thing I wanted to mention as we're thinking about digital tools is that MedicAlert recently introduced the Smart Medical ID card. And what this does is it basically takes all that information that's in your MedicAlert member profile, you know, your allergies, medications, medical conditions, medical devices, past surgeries, vaccinations, all that, and makes it accessible via a QR code. So you have this QR code, you carry it in your wallet or somewhere else in your person, and you or a caregiver can always have access to all the information that's included in your MedicAlert profile. Just by scanning it with your mobile phone. So that is available with all MedicAlert memberships. The card itself is $10, but it's something that we have found a lot of people find useful, especially in a caregiving, because you may go to a doctor's appointment with someone and need to know, you know, what kind of medication are they taking and what dosage. It's a great way to keep all that information immediately accessible. If you liked what we talked about today, I would encourage you to join us a couple of weeks, September 29th. We're going to be talking about hearing in your brain. I've learned a lot about hearing and hearing loss and hearing impairment and what that does in terms of affecting your overall health. And I think you're going to find it really interesting. So we're going to be talking about that in 2 weeks. We encourage you to register. And we have some recent events about different topics. We cover a wide range of things here at MedicAlert, but we've talked about everything from food allergies to what do you do after a dementia diagnosis, how do you live with rare disease, epilepsy, other types of things. So I encourage you to check those out as well. The last thing I will say is that we're, as I said at the beginning, a nonprofit organization. We welcome your support for making sure that we continue to be there to protect people for another 65 years and to help us produce events like these. So there's a place where you can make a donation if you so desire. And we're going to do a quick survey. Deanna, I'm going to ask you to pop that up on the screen. This is really helpful for us to understand, you know, what types of programming you want to see and what resonates and what we need to do going forward. So while you're doing that, I will say thank you again, Portia. So delightful to connect with you again. And we get to drill down this time on some specific issues that we just touched on the last time we had a chance to connect. So thank you for bringing your expertise and very human, compassionate lens on this particular issue of falls and staying safe in the home.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone joining and for MedicAlert for having me again. Always a pleasure.
Great, wonderful, thank you.